Job, Book 4, verse 8. Even as I have seen, they that plow iniquity and sow wickedness reap the same. Harold Bergman, Jewish shamus and World War II vet, is ready to settle down with his high school flame. When a society lady offers a job too simple, Harold winds up neck deep in a 25-year-old murder tied to a dead gangster and secrets no one wants unearthed. Just as the dust settles, a regular job with an insurance outfit drags him into something darker and more sinister. Now the dead are whispering, and the living are lying. He'll need the strength of his 5,000-year-old religion to survive the wickedness of the past. The Crop of Wickedness, Volume 3 of the Wichita Chronicles. Release date, October 8th, 2025.
Welcome to Tiki Man and the Viking podcast. This is the Viking. Join Tiki Man and the Viking for Local Author Day, Saturday, August 9th from 2 to 4 p.m. at the Advanced Learning Library in downtown Wichita. Books will be available for sale. And in this episode, we will continue our interview with suspense and romance author Dianne McCartney.
I think that what people don't realize about writers like us, is that we like, or I like, and I find this in common with most writers, mystery writers, we like a puzzle. We like something to solve. We like the things that keep us thinking a little bit more than some books might require. Because there's nothing more fun than when my daughter says to me, "Oh no, I was sure I had the killer this time and I was wrong." I'm like, "Ah, did my job, yay!" So I just really do kind of ask my character, like, what kind of story are you involved with right now, and then I just let it develop. And maybe it's, maybe I saw a murder on a newscast or something that kind of intrigued me how that happened. I did get asked a lot about how I came up with the method of death for the people this time. Mm-hmm. And I have to tell you that Mitch suggested that. I said, I want a unique way for these women to die. Give me an idea. And he gave me the idea, and I'm like,
oh, what a loving husband. That is just so nice.
Well, with his background, he can always come up with super creepy things. So I was glad to have that input because that's one I hadn't thought of. So
no, I mean, I knew. I'm going to look at Mitch now in a different light the next time I see him. It's like, dude, Yeah,
well, the other thing that authors like me have in common is we tend to have a very high sense of justice.
Yes,
which I think is so. I certainly do. I know. I'm always a little bit outraged at what some people suffer in our world unnecessarily. Right, yeah. And so writing a book like this is a way to get justice, because I'll be honest with you, at least on some level, my good guys always win. You might end up having, like in Dark Vengeance, I don't think you read that, HB,
I don't believe so, no.
That's my darkest book. That's the first book in the Elijah Black trilogy, and that's my darkest one. It's not everybody's cup of tea, but it's about a female serial killer. And I specifically wanted to write one about a female serial killer that you would have empathy for. And that's what I did. So it's
interesting challenge.
Yeah, people will either love it or it's too violent for them. So, which I'm not super violent in my books usually, but this one, because of the nature of it, it had to have violence. And
well, you don't have to show the violence. I mean, some of the Hitchcock and the shower scene, we don't see anything, but we have enough between the music and the editing to give us a sense of this is horrific. And that was the other thing too. There was some description in this first book. Mm-hmm. That was a little on the shocking side, but it was not a splatter film. It wasn't Freddy Krueger. It didn't have that. I think just the notion of serial killers is enough to scare the heck out of most people. Really.
Well, and I'm not a big blood and guts, even though I say it was like dark. I'm not a huge. I don't get into gushing blood and all this kind of stuff. It was the nature of the crimes that bothered some people in that book. women serial killers tend to punish men in a very specific way that involves their body parts, specific body parts. That's probably
My
enough
poor
said for a
dog.
podcast. I mean, that is just reality. This is how the few female serial killers, which is, I think it's right around 10% of serial killers are women. Men are 90, but women are 10. They tend to be extremely violent to certain parts.
And the
that's just
women serial
reality.
killers, don't they tend to be more caretaker type?
Yes. Yeah. So that's what really interested me about it is like, why would a woman be driven to so much that? And how could you think of her with sympathy and empathy, and that was really interesting to write.
Well, don't forget too. I mean, I think people are the white male, 35 to 55, and it's just like, well, okay, it's a human being that's the serial killer, and the human being could have any psychopathy, any type of issue, and it could be anybody, an 18-year-old, an 80-year-old, and I think that's where some of the shock value would come from Dark Vengeance, is the fact that, oh my goodness, it's a female. Well, okay, fine, but get over it.
Yeah,
she's human, and she had some issues that caused her to become a serial killer.
Yeah, and if you look statistically at serial killers, male or female, the vast majority of them have had horrendous childhoods.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yes.
These are not people, generally speaking. There's always exceptions, but generally speaking, these are not people who had anything near a normal childhood. In her case, she had about the most horrific childhood you can imagine.
Wow.
And at some point she snapped, and that's just the reality, but her journey, I think, is very interesting. And it's really interesting. My one of my best friends in Colorado, who's very religious and very sweet, and I said, look, you may not want to read this book. I am not. She loves buying all my books and has her Dianne shelf, she calls it, And I said, this may not be your kind of book, so don't feel bad. I said, the other two in the trilogy are not that dark, so you can read them, but it's okay to skip that. And I'll just give you a few clues on what happened. And, she said, I got brave enough to read it. And she read it, and she called me in tears and said, I loved it. I loved everything about it. And I said, are you serious? And she said, it made so much sense to me why she was the way she was. And it, that it broke her heart. She said, but you did make me cry. And I said, well, hell, I cried when I wrote it. Like, truthfully. But so it just goes to show you don't know. I do like to steer people to a kind of book that, in my bunch that they might enjoy more. I just didn't really think that would be one for her.
When you're writing a scene, is there a point when you go, I don't want to use the word spicy, but that's what keeps coming to mind. When you're writing a gore-filled scene and somebody is murdered, what is your point that kind of makes you think I need to go more, or I need to take some stuff out of this?
Oh, yeah.
Well, that's an interesting question. It's funny you mentioned Hitchcock earlier, because we were just talking about this the other day. One of his brilliance, I always think of the shower scene in Psycho,
right?
Because you never see blood except when it's finally trailing down the drain. You see flashes of the knife, and you see the curtain being yanked, and if you look, it's all kind of smoke and mirrors. You never see anything that you would consider really gory, and that's brilliant to me. So I personally stay away from a lot of extreme blood and guts, but I do tell what's happening and what has happened. You can't get away with that with this kind of writing.
Right.
I just don't kind of glory in the blood and guts. That's just not really my cup of tea, And
I think that Hitchcock, didn't he refer to that as theater of the mind?
I think so. That sounds familiar. So yeah, I would.
And I think that's one thing that I like a lot of older horror movies, because if they shed blood, I mean, yeah, there's some that went a little splatter crazy, but a lot of them, I mean, the special effects were there, but not to the point like it is now.
Yeah, it's like using the setting, like HB was saying, using spooky music, which I think everybody loves spooky music. Are you guys familiar with the old show, The Ghost and Mr. Chicken?
Oh my
Have you ever
goodness.
seen it?
Yes.
Don Knotts, right?
Yes.
Yes. One of my favorites, because I was one of my favorite memories of all time. I'm, about 10 years old, and I'm sitting watching The Ghost and Mr. Chicken, and there comes a scene in that movie where the music is da 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 da, and there's a picture on the wall and a knife in it, and there's blood coming out of the picture. Do you remember this?
Oh my.
And
Oh my.
I'm 10 years old, and the popcorn went pew all over my brother, who just laughed and laughed. And that's when I realized I love being scared a little bit. Like that's okay. I wasn't terrified. I was just like, oh, that's scary. So maybe that was the beginning of the idea.
There's a song called Dance Macabre, which is an older piece, real screechy violins and things like that, and it's disharmonic, and I mean it's meant to be very very kind of scary and set the mood, and it amazes me how much you hear it in the backs of film, because it just gets
People
put
found that.
into all sorts of little movies when they're trying to build kind of a scarier and unsettling scene.
Well, it's disorienting, and I think disorienting is exactly what makes a good horror film work, is that you're not sure of things. Now, you are going to be the keynote speaker for Tulsa Night Writers Conference called The Craft of Writing, The Thrill of Writing. This is Saturday, October 18th. Tell us more about your keynote. Well, you don't have to say it in advance, but do you have a preview of what you might be discussing?
Well, they were very kind and said I could do whatever I thought was best. I mean, Merle, who's the president, had asked me, and of course I said, what would you like me to speak on? Because I'm pretty flexible about stuff like that. And he said, anything you want. And I thought, you can't ask for better. So I'm kind of planning to talk about my journey for the first half, and then the second half talking about some habits that I've adopted that I think would help anybody get to where they want to be writing, wherever that is. I mean, you guys know we have all manners of writers. We're all writers. One person might want to just write, an intricate family history to give to her family. And that's totally okay if that's what you want. The important thing, I think, in this world is to know what you want. And I focus on that a lot in presentations. It's very helpful to have goals. And although I might be kind of a seat on the pants person creatively, I always have short-term goals. I always have long-term goals, and I always have a schedule. And I keep really carefully to my schedule because that's what keeps me super productive. So you got to balance that wild creative child, which is so fun. That's the fun part. That's what we love, right? We love to do that. Absolutely. But you have to have a bit of a business brain as well to balance that out.
That's interesting, because we talk about plotter and pantser, and whereas you talked about being kind of a hybrid, being on a stringent schedule kind of makes you a plotter in terms of process. Not in terms of writing, but just in terms of process. Is that accurate?
Yes. And I'm not going to lie to you. I mean, I grew up in a very disorganized, chaotic family, kind of a pretty dysfunctional family. And I always yearned to have a calmer existence. And, about the time I was 12, I realized that I just desperately had to have that in my life. So when I left home at 18, that's what I started on, just trying to establish myself with a calmer surroundings. My husband has been really good for me in that respect, because he's a super organized person. Scientists usually are. Brian, you know a little bit about that, I think.
I'm Einstein. My desk is a mess.
but the way you think about things is a little differently. And he really taught me how easy your life was if you got ahead of what you had to do and you try to stay ahead of it, kind of thing. So you never feel like you're panicked or rushed. That was probably the best thing that anybody's ever taught me. Because once I learned, I'm probably ADD. I'm pretty much, so having that kind of structure is really good for me. And once I learned to do that, I am the person who gets back to you right away. I'm the person who gets judging scores in earlier than anybody else. I am that person because that's what keeps me calmer and more functioning without kind of giving way to the chaos that this business can be sometimes.
Yes, of course.
I did a thing called Artists Inc. through the Midwest Artists Alliance, and the biggest thing it taught me is you make goals for yourself. You make a weekly, a 2-weekly, a monthly, and a yearly goal, and you have them displayed somewhere so you can see them every day.
Yeah.
And I fall off of that sometimes, but I usually have them in my mind.
Yeah.
And
as long as you got them somewhere, that's important. Okay, so without giving away anything that you might tell us in the keynote, which we'll be listening to with bated ears. Well,
sure.
What would be? I mean, and of course, in your bio. Of course, in your bio, you talked about having been a contest judge as a way of helping other writers. What is the one key piece of advice you would give to any writer of any genre, any level? What is a foundational piece of advice that you would give?
Oh, Lordy. I would say, to me, the most important thing that people need to hear, and I guess it would be craft oriented. It's kind of everything oriented when it comes to an author's life, is only compete with yourself. Stop worrying about who's more successful, who's less successful, who's making more money, whatever. Stop worrying about it, because nobody's author life is like your author life. Nobody's going to have the same set of priorities. Nobody's going to have the same goals. This is why people drop out of this business, because they get so discouraged by hearing, oh, this person supposedly made, $100,000, or this person this. Stop paying attention to that. It's very distracting. It does no good whatsoever. Compete only with yourself. As we talked about, set goals. If you're not meeting your goals, figure out why you're not meeting them. Maybe adjust them a little.
Yeah.
And always look into all the environments you're surrounding yourself with, because you guys know I'm a very surround yourself with positive people. The negative people need to just perhaps find another planet to go live on that's not your planet.
I'll be nicer, I promise.
Well, no, you're fine. But we have kicked a few people away from our table at OWFI, haven't we? No, actually, no. But it is interesting, because that's where we've seen you at, of course. And there's this kind of rotating group. It's like any director that has a stock company. There's a kind of a stock company at OWFI that just seems to hang around each other. And it's not just because of the laughter or anything. It is because of that positivity that everybody projects and gives and takes back and gives back in return again. I think that is wonderful. That's why Brian and I started doing this. It was all about wanting to get a charge out of people that we would interview, as well as hopefully motivating them even further. Although, there's certain people, I guess, are already overly motivated, like yourself. How much more can you be?
It is weird how many times this week I've heard people say writing is a lonely business. Well, it's as lonely as you want to make it. I mean, yeah, but when you sit there and type, I have a hard time being around people because I want to chat and do things. But, we've got other people we can rely on.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. So
that was one of the reasons I wanted to speak. I said yes to Tulsa, because they told me that their theme for their club is writers helping writers. And I went, done. I'm like, I'm in. We're good.
That's the proper attitude.
I think life is so much more fun when you do that, when you lift other people up. To enjoy.
It is rewarding. We should be giving back. So Tulsa Night Writers presents the 9th Annual Craft of Writing Conference, The Thrill of Writing. That's Saturday, October 18th. It's at the OSU Tulsa Conference Center. You folks can look it up online, Tulsa Night Writers. That's WRITERS. And our guest tonight, Dianne McCartney, is going to be the keynote speaker. Will you also be doing some sessions there as well, too?
Yeah, I'm doing the first session, I think, of the day as well.
Start off with a keynote, go right into a session. You can get a double shot of Dianne. There you go.
And there is a certain way that we end our podcast every time.
Always. Every time.
You ready?
Yep.
Read a book.
Read a book. That's what we tell everybody. Read a book.
That's
Dianne,
not a
thanks for
problem.
joining us. We so look forward to seeing you on October 18th. And
Thanks. Thanks for
wish you
having me.
well continued. Thanks
Look
a
forward to
lot.
talking to you soon.
Good to see you.
Bye.
All right. Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Tiki Man and the Viking Podcast brought to you by Rumination of Thunder Media. The following intro and outro music was used for this media project. The music Find Them by Alexander Nakrata. Free download from filmmusic.io. License Creative Commons Attribution 4.0 International.